Yo guys, so just before we get into the main crux of the video, just want to apologize that my audio levels weren't exactly perfect during this recording session. You could probably hear the music being a little bit too loud, and I didn't realize it was as loud as it was compared to my vocals. So do the best you can, and I'll try and fix it for any future videos. Again, sorry if you're struggling to hear what I'm saying. I'll try and improve it for future videos. Enjoy the video. Yo guys, it's me Matrix here, coach of the Welsh Warlords, bringing you a bit of a different video this week. I decided that it'd be kind of cool to carry on from what Goomer22 did last season. He did the most objective week 0 power rankings for season 6, and so I thought it'd be kind of interesting to see applying some of the stuff he spoke about last season to season 7 and create the most objective week 0 power rankings since Goomer22 from 4 months ago. Yeah, so just to do a little bit of a recap, Goomer22's edited formula and criteria. So the way that he scores it and the way that I'll be scoring it based on that is the fact that teams are scored on clear features of a team. These include these features here on the right in the table. Features which I think are important to any VGC draft team, or at least some of the more important aspects. There will be things that I've missed, and like there might be some other more important features of a team and some other features that can't exactly be categorized as easily as like some of these checklists. It essentially is all it is. It's just a checklist of the different features of a team. I understand that this ranking is in quotes, and that it will probably be a much worse ranking than any other rankings by any other players or any other coaches of the season. Like, it doesn't take into account skill level, it doesn't take into account the actual mons that have been drafted. It's rather just the tech that's been drafted along with them, and in my opinion it also allows you to identify like just how deep a team is, and like the different modes and options that they have, and just how diverse the team can be, which is still pretty useful to have, but it's not by any means the be-all and end-all of what a good team is. So yeah, the criteria is scored in clear features of a team. The total points are added up, and those teams are then ranked in order, which have already been done. And the tiebreakers for those teams that are who have finished on the same score, there are a few teams that have total on the same score, uses the total base stat total of the team, and so the higher the average base stat total. So the team with the highest the team with the highest base stat total will be placed higher than a team with a lower base stat total. So that's the way we're doing it. It is all objective. It's not, none of it is opinion based. Other than suppose that this is an opinion that this method works. But yeah, so the way we've got it, the features we've got is Tailwind and Trick Room. Obviously, I think those two are very important speed control aspects for any VGC draft team. Being able to have Tailwind to outspeed your opponent, or Trick Room to either reverse it or set it for yourself for your own team is incredibly vital. If anything, I would say Trick Room is even more important than Tailwind, because there are other ways to speed control without Tailwind, such as like Electro Web, Icy Wind and stuff. But for this purpose of this, they will be both ranked at 2 points apiece. Each unique type that you have on the draft team will be worth 0.5 points, so half a point. Usually teams will rack up about 6 to 8 points as their average. Redirection I've condensed into 1 point, because I feel like redirection isn't exactly the end of the world. I don't think you need redirection for a team, although it is a very vital part of most teams. So instead of splitting it between Rage Powder and Follow Me, I've just chucked it all together into 1. So redirection includes only Follow Me or Rage Powder. It doesn't include further moves like Ally Switch or any type of ability-based redirection like Lightning Rod or Storm Drain. So it is only just been allocated 1 point. Prankster, 1 point. I think Prankster is not a necessity either, but it is a very important tech in the toolkit of a team. Having Prankster just priority is really important, or rather, it's very valuable. So having that Prankster piece on your team could definitely gives you a point in your tech department. Base speed of over 120 or above. I think for a team to have a really fast mode, or like to have a really good, strong, or just a fast mon to hit out the gate with, 120 is usually the baseline. I prefer 130 personally in most of my team comps, but not always doable. So like 120 I feel is a decent baseline to be able to outspeed a lot of the opponent's teams, or a lot of mons on opponent teams without being overly invested in speed. On the other hand, there's also the base speed of 14 below, and I feel like this is just as important as well, because it means that you can get good Trick Room sweepers, good users under Trick Room, and sometimes a lot of those mons who are like 14 below, they have very low speed, but they make up for it in their defenses and offenses, so they can be quite bulky but also hit hard. So I think both having a mon faster than 120 and a mon slower than 40 is very good for a team, which is why they're both given a point per Pokemon that is on a team with those stats. Then we move on to the unique Pokemon with a base attack or special attack of 120 and above. So half a point is given for each unique mon with if you have a mon with 120 attack or higher, or a special attack of 120 or higher. So if a mon has got an attack stat and a special attack stat of 120, that's not unique, so it could only be counted as half a point. If you have two mons with one being above 120 in attack and one being above the special attack, then that contributes to having 1 full point. And the same is said for the base defense and special defense mons. More so for this one, it's a lot of more defensive base mons will have can be split in defenses like 150, 150, or 110, 110, 115, 115 like Suicune. So it's important that you have a unique mon for each of those, because you're not always going to be able to invest in your special defense and your defense in the same game. So I think it's important to know this. Okay, so I just spoke about the base defense, the unique base defense, special defense, and I just realized that I haven't actually recorded. I wasn't recording from that point onwards, so this is just a repeat. This will be shoved in to the start of the video again. I kind of missed going through ranked 24 to like ranked 21. I must have forgot to hit the record button, and I only realised that afterwards something crashed. I don't know, so I'll just continue on with what I was saying. So for you guys, all you guys know is that I've just spoken about the defense and the special defense. But I also think fake out is super important to a team. They need fake out is so important in Series 10. Without the worry of there being a Dynamax threat, fake out is a lot more reliable. It also pressures the opponents to do stuff like protect and stuff, which you can allow yourself to play around. You can set up with fake out pressures. Yes, I do think slower fake out pressures are slightly worse than faster ones, but that's just because they provide different roles. Like in my opinion, like a fast fake out pressure really helps you to set up from the get-go, where for a slower one can be used through pivoting, as they are usually a bit more bulky and they can take hits, and they can allow you to get into really good positions in late game. And that's why I feel about ranking fake out so highly this formula. So then there's terrain setters and weather setters. Terrain and weather are both being included as just if they have a terrain setter, which is that they have one of the Surge abilities, and weather setting is if they have a entry weather setting ability. No Cloud9 is really being considered through this ranking, and none of the Prankster weather or terrain setting is being considered, even though they are viable options. And then lastly, we've got Intimidate, which I still believe is one of the strongest abilities within the current VGC format. It's an ability that allows you to have an extra option, especially if it's in the back. It means that you can not only defensively switch out one of your mons, but you can also actively debuff one of the opposing teams, one or two of the opposing team's mons. Yes, there are abilities that counter Intimidate now, much more so than previous generations, but I still think it's a valuable ability to have. on any team, and it can really deepen your arsenal that your draft team possesses. So without further ado, I'll get back into telling you the rankings. To begin with, we have rank 24. Now this team only actually has 11 unique types, which is quite shocking considering this team isn't even the monotype team. The fact that they only managed to get 11 unique types across their 11 mons means they've doubled up on a lot of their types. They have Trick Room, but no Tailwind. They have no Redirection or Prankster, which I don't think is a major issue, but maybe leading to one of those niches where you've got little utility elsewhere might be of use. They don't have a mod faster than 120. They do have a base speed of 40 below. I can't remember them all, but I'll show you the team in a moment. And they do have a weather mode, so that's pretty decent. And the team is the Tendo Melmetal. They do have one that's slow in like Hippopotas and Pyukumuku, but like nothing overly slow. They have Jellicent for a Trick Room setter, which is nice, or Comfey. Don't have Tailwind because Comfey lost Tailwind into Generation 8. It was a tutor move back in Generation 7 that it no longer gets access to. There's a lot of repeating types. Like you see a lot of ground types here. You've got 3 ground types. You've got 2 steel types. You've got 2 water types. It's a lot of repeating Pokemon on this team, like type-wise, which is why you've got such a low diversity in types. It's very reminiscent of like a max format team with like that Regigigas Weezing or that Celesteela, but there's no proc for Celesteela on this team, or like Comfey plus Dracozolt, you know. We've also Dracozolt, so you don't have Fake Out on the team. Terrain isn't a major issue. It would be nice to have seen like Intimidate on the team or something, maybe just to fill out that tech. Especially like over something like Pyukumuku. I think there's a lot that this team could probably work on, but with 4 trades it might be a little bit more difficult. But the team could definitely do with some Fake Out. It could definitely do with like a mon faster than 120, or at least around 120. I think the fastest mon on this team is what, looking at it, maybe Gigas or Comfey. Maybe Dugtrio. I know Dugtrio only hits like 100 though, so it's not exactly overly fast. So yeah, maybe it could just do with like it's sorely missing Tailwind in my opinion. There's a lot of mons here which would really benefit from Tailwind, like Celesteela, Dracozolt. I mean, you don't have to run stand all the time for a speed. Diggersby, Jellicent even for like more spouts. Gigas to come in after Tailwind's been set up can be doing big. So yeah, there's a few mons there that could really do with it. Just needs a few reworks and the team could be a lot higher in point up. Rank 23, we do have the Mono Master himself, Think Like a Ramonbi with a Mono Flying team, just a fast team overall. However, the base speed is the fastest mon is Hawlucha at 118, which isn't even that fast. Like 120 is usually that benchmark to hit. So it's kind of surprising that the Mono Flying team doesn't hit that, but they do have Prankster Tailwind, which is really nice. And even though they are so fast, they did manage to sneak in a Trick Room user in Swoobat, even though Swoobat's really fast at 114 speed. It can at least do like fastest in prison, I think. So it can kind of negate Trick Room setup that way. From on a flying team, you do expect there to be some, you know, not going to cover every type. I mean, I think the maximum type coverage it can get is 12, and this team has 10, so nearly every pick is a unique type combination, except for the double up with a Molotov plus Thunderous. And yes, so like that could have been something different, and the fact that there's a mono flying type on the team. So, I mean, it's done really good to try and diversify those types as best as you can. Unfortunately, there is only 2 flying type redirectors into Kiss and Tick, so did miss out there, but I don't know if you really wanted a redirector because of Hippie hitting that redirector for the same damage as they would for the others, and like Rock Slide is so spammable against the team, like redirection isn't even the best for the team, so that's understandable. Flying types are naturally fast, so you're never going to hit 40 really. At least he's got the good spreads in the offenses and defensive stats. Like Articuno's special defense is 110. You've got the defensive Skarmory. You've got physically offensive like Landorus, Ment, Thunderous. So you're hitting all those types of stats spreads really well. There is no flying type one that gets fake out, so that's an unfortunate thing. And there's no terrain setter that gets there's no flying terrain setter either. So again, that's limited there. And there's only one weather setter. What I still haven't changed, even though I've recorded this once and I mentioned it in the first time, is I still haven't added the extra point for the intimidation with silence. That's my bad. So I didn't point that out in the original recording, but I forgot to add the intimidate for the silence. I remember Landorus was removed that had intimidate, so I just thought, oh, there's no intimidate, there's elements. But that still only brings the total up to 13, which is still below our next person on the list, which is rank 22, 15.5. It is the Cambridge Camerupt with Moltres, Galar, Arachnid, and Chandelure. You've got very specially offensive team with like Moltres, Chandelure hitting those really easily. And then the highest physical offensive one is Rhydon, I think. Just allow that team to break that 120 stat. I think Rhydon's 130 in its physical offenses. So this team is very much more specially offensive. It does have a good combination with types. Like 15 types is really good. It is missing Tailwind. Like that Tailwind would be so much higher on this list. Doesn't have a mod faster than 120, but I don't think that's the worst thing for a team. But for this team, which doesn't have Tailwind, that doesn't have a fast mod, I think it does sorely have to rely on a little bit more around that Trick Room mode and just like being a bit bulkier around the team, which it certainly can do with its base defenses being pretty high. Like Arachnid's got good special defense, you got Rhydon for defense, I suppose. And you've got Intimidate on the team with hit on top, which is really nice, who also provides fake outs alongside Cothlorita. But like the HP on the team is really brought down because it's Shedinja, and like Arachnid's not the most healthy one on the team. So like HP wise, it's much more its defenses rather than its actual HP stat. Same with Chandelure, it's got lower HP stat than the other ones because it's a ghost type. But yeah, that's the Cambridge Cameras. So we move on to rank 21, which again, another team without Tailwind. It does have Trick Room, has 14 types for its team. Prankster's got one of them, and it is the Snowmobile Spraggies. Offensively, it's decent. It's got at least 120 in both physical and special. Easily hits the special with Alakazam hitting like 120. I think Exeggutor Alola gets 125 special attack, so it's really hitting the special side really well. Physically though, it's only just met the 120 benchmark with Grimmsnarl, being this team's best physical offensive mon. But Grimmsnarl's a mon you typically want to be running support, so not exactly ideal. Plus, I'm pretty sure I know this is a post-draft week analysis, but Grimmsnarl has been traded out since, so for Primarina, which is more special offense, and I know Vaporeon's been traded for something, but I don't remember what. So this team's losing its physical offense pretty quick, and for the fact that it doesn't have Tailwind means that you're going to be running Cinderaces with like Jolly nature rather than Adamant, so you're reducing the power levels there. And since Grimmsnarl's been traded out, you're only really relying on like Purloin for like the Thunder Waves, wherefore Grimmsnarl would have been nice for those Thunder Waves, and for that speed control. So it does end up lacking a little bit there. It does have a couple, like a multitude of Trick Room setters though, in like Orbeez, like Exeggutor and Alakazam, so like this team can be run under the Trick Room. But then you've got Cinderace, which kind of wants to be run outside the Trick Room, with more like Scarf U-turn as you're setting it or something, or Banded U-turn. So it is a bit of a shame there. The team doesn't have any like Intimidate or weather setting, terrain setting, which is a shame. It would be nice to have like seen like a little mode there maybe to really help what this team wants to do. And there's no redirection, but as I say, at least you've got 2 Prankster users, which has now been changed to 1. But you're hitting all the other stat benchmarks, which is why you're still 16. I think if you had Tailwind on this team, you'd end up being 18 points and really up there in the top 10s, thereabouts, or just outside the top 10. So yeah, and then we move on. Okay, so moving on to rank 20, Preface. This is about the 4th time I've tried recording rank 20 because I kept realizing I made a few mistakes on some of the points. Anyway, we've got a team here with Tailwind and Trick Room, really good. 14 type combinations, which is alright. It's got a redirector. It does have a base speed mon of below 40. It doesn't have a mon faster than 120, unfortunately. It is weaker on the physical side than it is on the special side on this team. Actually, I think only 115 is its strongest mon. And it does have Fake Out, which is really good, and some really good defensive pieces. And this is Rebellion. So Entei is actually their strongest physical attacker, and that's only up to 115, which isn't exactly strong when considering like some of the other mons in the game. So it is lacking a little bit on the physical offensive side of this team. It doesn't have prank, so that's fine. It could do with a mon faster than Raikou, maybe, with Raikou being 115 as the team's fastest. But that 3 mon core of Entei, Suicune, and Raikou is really strong. You've got Togetic for redirection, which is great. Doesn't have like terrain, weather, or intimidate, but that's okay. Sorry. Overall, a decent team. Is doubling up on a few types and the later tiers, but it does have a strong initial those fire, water, and electric types. Nice like Trevenants there with like grass and ghost. So there is a lot to this team, which is good. Yeah, the terrain, it's not necessarily a team that needs terrain or weather, or even intimidate. It's just the case that it doesn't have any of those. It is nice that the Tailwind setter is Unpheasant as well as Togetic, so Togetic isn't pressured. I'm not actually sure if Togetic even gets Tailwind. I know it did in Nat decks, but I'm not liking previous gens. I can't even remember if it gets Tailwind. I'm 90% sure it does. But yeah, so pretty decent team. It's just and that's where Rebellion rank at 20th. So yeah, as the only 16.5 team. So now we move on to rank number 19. It's got a really good type combination, like 8.5. That's 19 types. At 19 types, that's 17 types that this team has, all missing all but one. It's got Tailwind, Trick Room. You've got the Prankster. You might not have the fastest mon on the team, but a lot of these teams are proven to have like some of these slower or bulkier teams anyway. Base speed is like you're getting a -40 mon at the very least. Really good offensive split. Defensive split is a little bit less so. Shame that this team doesn't have Fake Out though. And this team is the Bulky Dragons. That Klefki is really nice. Prankster, it does provide a lot of like speed control in that way, so it's not too bad for this team. And you've also got like a really, what I would call a reliable bulky Tailwind setter in Latias. You've got a fast mon in Gengar, which is nice to be scarfed as well, so like it's not always the end of the world. You've got an Intimidator in Arcanine, which really helps the team, especially on the defensive side, as this team's actually weaker on the defensive side than it is special defense. Like you've got like Latias to take the special hits and stuff. Although the team itself actually isn't weaker on the defensive, it just has a raw base stat lower, that's all. So it really is nice to have like an Arcanine with the Intimidator to really help bolster that defenses. I mean, you've already got Klefki for the screens as well, so I wouldn't say like it's a weak point to the team at all. You've got the Lorenz and Malamar a little bit conflicting with their abilities, but having 2 mons doing similar niche things, but overall it's not too bad. Point wise, you got 17 points out of this team. There is no weather setter, but like you don't need it. I mean, Klefki can set weather if you need to be. You can also set terrain and missy terrain. So the only thing I would say that the team is missing is some Fake Out, because then it allows you to do a bit more setup stuff, like set up Latias, or you can set up your Trick Room, especially with your for Escavalier, especially with like Gengar and Malamar not being very reliable Trick Room setters, in my opinion. So it just like that Fake Out addition would be really nice to see and really boost this team up to from like a 17 pointer to a 19 pointer, which is up in the top levels of the team, especially with how diverse the types are in this team. So yeah, we move on to rank number 18. We have Tailwind and Trick Room, which is great. this is a 17.5 team, the first of a few. It's got a 13 unique type combinations, which is a little bit on the lower end. It could be nice to have a few more diverse types. This team is the Porygons. It doesn't have a mon above base speed 100, never mind base speed 120. It is a lot more on the slower side of things. It does have a few doubled up types, so as you can see, like the Moltres and Braviary both being flying. You've got Herdier with Braviary both being normal. You've got Throw and Urshifu both being fighting. So there are, and Togepi and Shiinotic both being fairy, and that's kind of where you're losing some of the type diversity on this team. But Herdier at least offers Intimidate to the team, which does nicely to lower the opponent's offenses. This team isn't exactly lacking on the defensive side of things, or at least a mon that can take a defensive hit. You've got Dragalge for special attacks, you've got Bronzong for physical attacks, so it's not too bad in those things. Silvally is actually listed here in my ranking here as a unique type thing, so it is adding, there's actually only 12 unique types on this team. Then Silvally is listed as an extra 13th type, as I would call it, so it's given an extra half point. Togepi and Blastoise, really nice for the redirection capabilities there. This team does have a nice Trick Room mode. That's not at all what I'm getting at. Like, I'm not saying it's not got tools for slow mode. Like, it's got Shiinotic, Dragalge, and Bronzong, which is nice. It just would be nice to have like a little bit more reliable, like a faster speed control. Like Urshifu was the one that likes to hit hard, hit first, you know. And outside of being like choice scarfed all the time, or choice scarfed all the time, it's going to be a little bit harder for Urshifu to really do anything. Especially as it's nice to be paired with Togepi with the redirection for it. But teams that have like Dazzling Gleam and stuff just to chip that Urshifu, regardless, it was really nice. Although the Dragalge is a nice addition to the team to help threaten those poison types. So Trick Room mode is doing pretty well there. But yeah, so 17.5, and it is the lowest base stat total of this collection of teams, which isn't to be surprised with both Togepi and Herdier on this team, both competing for the Eviolite as well. Because of Togepi can be sashed, but then you can't sash some of the other mons. So yeah, 17.5. We then move on to rank 17, and Tailwind, Trick Room, great, 14 types. You've got a Prankster, a little bit weaker on one of the offenses, but decent defensives. You've got a Fake Out, which is great, and Intimidate, so really doing well. It is the Beantown Barnacles. You've got that Prankster Whimsicott, you've got Trick Room modes with the Dusknoir Slowbro for that slower mode. It is missing that mon just faster than 120. Whimsicott being the fastest at 116 on the team. It does have Fake Out in the form of Morpeko, so not the most reliable Fake Out user, but at least it's a low budget Fake Out mon, and does add to the type combinations, like it's giving the Electric and Dark type to this team. This team, I think, is lacking on the physical offensive side. I think their strongest physical mons include like Stoutland and Dusknoir, so like not the strongest. I know Flapple gets Hustle to really boost that physical offense, so does Durant, but like the mons that aren't exactly reliable to hit with those abilities. And I know you've got Dusknoir does decent damage, and Sheer Force Nidoqueen does okay, so there is ways around that. Stoutland having Intimidate is nice for the team as well, to bolster some of its defensive stats a bit more. I'm not sure if any of these mons get like a Sweet Scent or anything to help with the hustles, Flapple and Durant, but we'll see. Golduck does get Cloud 9. I did say like I would be up to like say about how it's, but it's not like how I said earlier, maybe that Cloud 9 is useful for weather because of its ability that activates upon switching and negates weather that's on the field. So like, yeah, you could include Cloud 9 as part of that, but I decided to just do exactly the same as what consider weather to be the same as how Goomer did last season. And that it's not a defined mode per se with Cloud 9, it's just a nice ability to have on the team. But there's other ways around preventing weather, and it's not like it's helping your team more by setting no weather. It's one of those. It's kind of, yeah. So you could consider it. So like if you want to consider like a Cloud 9 as a ability for the weather setting, then yeah, I'd say you could boost that by like half a point over a full point, so like 18, but it's one of those. So then we move on to rank 16, and you'll see like it's pretty similar to the last team we just looked at actually. Only you've got one slightly lower defensive stat than your offenses. You do have that 120 speed now, so we are having a slightly faster team. Still got those 14 type combinations, and we are looking at the coughing smokers. And yes, this team is a lot more offensive than some of the other teams. It does have Intimidate with the Gyarados. You've got Fake Out with the Lopunny. You got both physical offenses off the chart and some special attackers in Cursola. It does split its physical mons to it's nicely between its Trick Room and its Tailwind team modes, which this team really utilizes Tailwind and Trick Room quite nicely. Splits its type chart, its types pretty well. It is a little bit lower, I believe, on the physical defensive side. Like no mons are really hitting 110, so it's a little bit more physically frail. Like Cursola is its best special defense mon, like 130 special defense in Cursola, but I think its HP is pretty low, so it's not exactly the best. So it's a little bit more on the frail side of the team, but overall doing pretty alright, especially with it having the Intimidate with the Gyarados if they so want. So yeah, this is 17.5, and we move on to rank number 15. Again, another 17.5 team. We have got the Holosapod Warrior, which is a really strong team with a Tailwind. It's got a nice Trick Room mon and Duosion. It does have a base speed mon below 40, but that is only Duosion. It has Inteleon for Inteleon Tornadoes, I believe, hit 120 and 121. So you got two mons there for the highest speed. It's got a nice time combination. I think it's got 15 unique types, which is only 3 from max, which is good. Yeah, it doesn't have redirection or prankster, but again, I don't think that's like the most important part of any team. It does have a really strong fake out user in Kangaskhan. It's really nice. No terrain or weather setters inherently, and no Intimidate for the team. I feel like if this team picked up like maybe even Intimidate or anything else, like it just boosts itself way up into like top 8 or something. I don't think it's a necessity to get that though. It's just like I'm not suggesting that these teams make major changes or anything. Just ranking like where they are at right now, which is pretty interesting. I do think like they have a bit of a split on the physical and special modes though, like the special mons are like the faster mons and the physical mons are like the slower mons. But they have really good ways to like control the speed and stuff. So yeah, that's not much more to be said here with the Holosapod Warrior. We move on to rank 14, and this is another team without Tailwind, in fact. So the fact that this team doesn't even have Tailwind and is already so far up the list is quite impressive, and that's helped by the fact that it's got 17 of the available 18 types on this team. It does have Trick Room, but no Tailwind, as I said. It has a Prankster mon, but only one mon above 120 speed at least, and no mons below 40. So it's got fast mons with no Tailwind, or medium speed mons with no Tailwind, but it's got Trick Room but no slow mons. Interesting. Really good offenses, split up between its two offensive stats, and its defensive stats, they've got some good mons for that as well. Fake Out and Intimidate. We are talking of the Tyranitar sources. Cresselia, super bulky mon, really good, as I say. Carbink has the extra defenses to the team as well. You've got Naganadel, which is its only mon above 120 speed, meaning Thunderous is really pressured on this team as its prankster user to control the speed, at least on the faster mons. So this team might struggle a little bit more with like faster dark types or something, especially like Machamp being pretty slow on this team. You're able to hit the Cresselia and stuff and can't be prankstered. It does have the Venusaur, which is cool, but no weather for the Venusaur. And I do think Venusaur can be run without weather per se, but the fact that Thunderous gets Prankster Rain Dance, so it's not even helping the Venusaur at all, it does hurt a little bit there. And the Trick Room set is Carving, but I feel like this team isn't exactly a team you want to be running in Trick Room all the time anyway. Like, you get Golurk and Machamp and Dunsparce, but At least you've got Fake Out Torikow, which I think is a pretty good mon. In one mon, you're getting Fake Out, you're getting Intimidate. So it's really techy or rather full of tools to really help out your team. So I feel like this team just falls short a little bit. Tailwind would boost this team up a lot and really take that pressure off that Thunderous from doing as much work as it needs to do. Or even like a Sunsetter for the Venusaur to make this team faster, although I don't feel like Venusaur is super good in this format, so without Sun it's definitely a lot more hindered. It's just a shame that the Pranks user can't use Sunny Day, but there is options elsewhere like Cresselia can be bulky and set Sunny Day and stuff like that, so it's not like the end of the world for this team. So we move on to rank 13. This team 17.5 again, and it's actually the Bolton Bashers, the brother of the Tyranitarsaurus. Again, this is another team without Tailwind, but this team has a little bit more natural speed to it. It's like Spectria is really fast, Uxie is actually pretty quick. You wouldn't believe it is, but it hits the base 90 speed, which is really good. You've got Intimidate with Tauros, which is really nice. Cramorant, unfortunately, is a water type that doesn't offer a flying type that doesn't offer Tailwind, which really sucks for this team because this team is trying to make the most of its types. Again, 15 types combination, which is really good. I think the team is missing a few more niche types. Like it's got the dragon and stuff. It's got the fairy. But like you've got types that you don't usually get, which are like rock. You've got ice on this team. This team is missing a bug type, but that's okay. It's got poison. But it is missing like a defensive steel type on the team. But if you've got an offensive poison type, then it's okay. With Toxicroak a little bit there. But yeah, you've got Redirection and Clefable, really powerful for the team, so it's not always necessary that this team even needs the Tailwind. You don't need Prankster on the team, which is fine. It's got very good defensive stats, very good offensive stats, and it's not necessary that you need a Terrain or Weather Setter, so overall like a really decent team with a lot of different utility. Moving on to rank 12. Only 18-point team. Tailwind and Trick Room. There's only 14 unique types on this team. A few double up types towards the end of their draft. They've got a Redirector. They've got a mon that's faster than 120 at the very least. They do have a mon that's slower than 40, albeit it is it's not exactly a Trick Room-ish mon. They do have strong offenses. They've got at least a combination of both defenses to be a bit 110, and they've got a Fake Out user, at least one of them, and this team is the Rolled Gold Pretzels. So they have Clefairy for that redirection, and that is their only mon below below 40, so just having Clefairy there just allows them to scrape into 18 points. Aegislash is slow but only 60. As I said, I've said about this team before, like it's a little bit more Trick Room weak. Although it's got some mons that like hitting those benchmarks for the defensive side, like 110. That's only because Nihilego is hitting like a high special defensive role, and you've got Tangrowth hitting the high physically defensive role as well as so like both are like weak to defense, and then the other one's weak to special. So I don't know how well they cover each other in practice. I know in theory, like one can switch in for physical, and the other can switch in for special attacks. Both can do decent damage as well. This team isn't lacking offense in the slightest either. Like you're hitting 130 easily with some of these mons like Absol and stuff in physical, and the special offenses with like Nihilego and Aegislash is crazy. Aegislash is a bit more harder to like rank as like your defensive or offensive. Like does this team have a strong defense or offense? Well, it kind of depends on what Aegislash is, and if you take it as being like more of an offensive piece, because that's basically what it's going to be doing a lot of time. If it wants to do damage, it's going to be on the offensive side. It's actually pretty physically frail. So yeah, this is where the team is at. I'm pretty sure that it doesn't have Intimidate. I just want to double check that. I always forget, like sometimes to Sharp you don't get that, you know. Now we get Swift Swim. You do have not Swift Swim, Speed Boost. So you've got Speed Boost on 2 mons here. So yeah, a Fake Out mon in Persian is really good as well. So It's one of the fastest ones. Fastest fake out users at base 115. So pretty good. Very physically, very offensive team. Very fast. But we move on to rank number 11, and this is our first 18.5 pointer out of 7 teams that are on 18.5. This team has the lowest base stat total, which is why it's ranked at the bottom of these 7. But at rank number 11, we do have the Alexandria Arcanines, and it's probably not helped much by having Lickitung, Berserker, and Fungus on the team, and even Alchemy, for the why its stat total is so much lower than some of the others. Has Tailwind, has Trick Room, decent Trick Room setting. BTM, I think it's not the most reliable, but it's a decently offensive mon as well, which is nice. It does hit the base speed easily. It's got a few mons above 120. It hits the minus 40 base speed thanks to Fungus and BTM. Physically offensive, really good. It's got, I think, Urshifu. I'm not sure if Dragapult hits the 120 physical. I think it does. It's got some special attackers again. In the BTM hits 120 special attack, so it's hitting that. The defensive side, it's a little bit more frail. I think it's could be the special defense. I'm not 100% sure. I know one of them doesn't quite hit the 110 marker, but yeah, it's not terrible. You know, it's pretty good. It's a really well-rounded team on tech, which is nice. Even if its pieces are a little bit more frail, like Fungus and that. But it does have that redirection, it does have that Prankster and Lipard, so it does have a lot of those pieces you're looking for in a team. If it had either Intimidator or Weather Setter or something, it could be a lot higher. Even if it had traded out one of the lower picks for a little bit more defense or special defense on this team to be good switch-ins for like Urshifu and Dragapult, then this team could be a lot more threatening. I know Lickitung can be used with Eviolite and it's nice to be switched in onto Dragapult and stuff, but it's also good for like stopping weather teams from outspeeding you. But it's just looking at the points ranking, it's doing it pretty well. So we then move on to rank number 10, another 18.5 team, and it is the Baltimore Pangorioles, which is a surprise really, considering on so many draft rankings they are the number 1 team. This team does have Tailwind and Trick Room. It's got 16 different types, which is a really good, it's got Redirection with Volcarona. It doesn't have Prankster, but again, that's okay. It's got a very fast team with like 120 with the Aerodactyl and stuff, at 130, both the 120. But there isn't a mon on this team that's below 40. So this Trick Room mode, even though they have the Ordino, the Drudigan on the team, even Azumarill, I know Azumarill gets Aqua Jet, that's primarily what its role is, and Rillaboom gets Grassy Glide. The slower side of the team, the slower mons aren't exactly slow. Like there's a lot of mons that underspeed them inside Trick Room and stuff, so it is something this team might have to watch out for a little bit. It hits the offenses easily with Volcarona and Rillaboom and stuff like that. The defensive side, it hits the 110 special defense with Hitmonlee, but it doesn't have the strongest defensive switch-ins in the world, so it's a little bit more frail on that side. The fake out pressure is good with Togedemaru and Rillaboom, and Hitmonlee, so that's really good. And it's got a terrain mode, which is really what helps this team just bolster a few more points with the Rillaboom and the Hitmonlee, or the Rillaboom and Thievul. There is no weather on this team, but again, that's fine. And again, no Intimidate, but it's doing pretty well. Regardless, maybe 1 or 2 changes can be made to make the team a little bit better into like Trick Room matchups and stuff, but overall, it's doing really well. Rank number 9. We have got another 18.5, slightly more base stat total than the last team. It is the Drowsy Dracozolt. You've got Tailwind and Trick Room on this team, even though the Tailwind isn't the most reliable in Lullaby, or at least, well, it is, but it can be taunted really easily and it's a slow mon. Trick Room is really good on this team in Rapidash or Cottertail. I know Rapidash has been traded now. You've got decent type coverage to be expected, like 15 types. That's hitting the average type combination, in my opinion. There is no redirection on this team. It could have done with some redirection maybe, especially like for a Poltergeist setup or Ferrothorn setup, or letting that Perish trap work a little bit better or something like that. It could have done with. What's really nice is that this team does pick up on Intimidate with Luxray to really help it boost its points. It does have a weather setter in Politoed and Abuser with Omastar, which is really nice to just, another mode to this team. Because that's essentially what these terrain setters or weather setters are doing. They're providing a mode for the team. It does have a slow mode. Its speed isn't exactly the fastest. It's got Salazzle with its fastest team. Its fastest Pokemon, about 117 base speed. So it just misses out on that 120 benchmark. Definitely hits below 40 easily with like Ferrothorn. You've got some strong physical offenses and special offenses on this team, both hitting 120. I think Beware hits the physical and Salazzle hits the special. Then you've got the defensive capabilities. Well, you've got Ferrothorn and Goodra there. Like they are really tanking hits for your team. So yeah, this team overall, it hits a lot of the capabilities that or tech that a team would want. Whether it is a strong team synergistically or offensively is like a second question. But you're getting a lot of what you'd want in a team from this. So it just might not be the team composition that everyone dreams of. It's definitely a lot more high skill, I think, this team to try and play. We move on to rank number 8 now, and it is the Brisbane Blazerkins. Really offensive team. You straight away you see that attack and special attack stat. You're getting loads of mons hitting that base 120. At least Mamoswine physically, Magmort especially. They're just a couple of the first ones you look at. This team has Redirection, which is a nice plus, and it's got Intimidating Mawile. It's got a Terrain Setter in Thwacky, even though it doesn't need terrain on this team. You do have a Heliolisk, which would be really nice for if it had weather, but that's okay. It is a little bit more defensively weak. Only one mon hits over 110 in its defensive stats. I think that's Latios in its special defense, and the rest of the team is at least below 110 in every defensive stat. You've got base speeds. No mon is slow enough for minus 40, so I think Mawile is the slowest mon, and that's 55 base stat. There are 14 unique types, which is just below the average I said before, but it's really good. Still good coverage across the team. I know Azelf has actually been swapped out from Esprit now, but regardless, it's that makes no difference to the overall team in terms of what's featured on it. Tailwind, you've got Latios, which is really good. I know Togekiss might get it, but it's one of those. And the Lake Spirit is your Trick Room setter on this team, /Reverser /Imprisonment. So it does have those options to work with as well. And I would say the speed 120 easily hit. I mean, you've got Barraskewda, for example, that is crazy fast. So it hits 206 max speed, jolly. So yeah, we move on to rank number 7. Rank number 7 is it's actually myself, the Welsh Waylords. We have a slightly higher base stat total than the Brisbane Blazerkins. Still not the highest of these teams, tied at 18.5. We have Tailwind and Trick Room on the team, Corviknight Pelipper or Trick Room Setter in Slowking. Although all 3 are weak to electric, so speed control being weak to electric isn't the best. There are 16 unique types on this team, only missing Fairy and Dragon, which isn't bad. Definitely doesn't complete the fantasy core, but there's ways to get around that. No redirection or prankster is not the end of the world, as I've said previously. It doesn't have a mon faster than 120. Its fastest mon is actually Miltank at 100, but it does have weather modes to make it a speed difference. It does have mon slower than 40, which is nice in Slowking. It does have at least 2 mons for its physical and special attack, Rose Raid, Heracross hitting with above 120 in those stats, and the defensive stats, it has Slowking hitting the 110 special defense, but just missing out with the 110 defensive stats. Spiritomb is the most defensive of the team at 108. But again, this team has Intimidate, so it really helps to cover that slightly more defensively weak side, even though I wouldn't call it weak per se. And clearly there is a defined web mode, as there are two of them in both rain and hail, so there's a point awarded for that. Probably could do with like a slightly faster mod here or there. Maybe redirection would have been nice on this team, or a prankster mod like Clefty would have been really good for this team, but that's it's already drafted elsewhere. Moving on to rank number 6, we have got the Glitchxcity Tricos. A really good team. You've got both weather and terrain on this team, so they get a point each for those. You've got an easy Intimidate with Crocodile and a Fake Out mod with Raichu, so and Shiftry. So you've already got like you're covering a lot of those points down there at the bottom of the tech. It is just falling behind a little bit actually on the stats. Like 120, there's not a mod above 120 speed on this team, even though they've got 2 chlorophyll mods with the sun, so the sun mode is where the speed comes from. Vileplume and Shiftry, but Vileplume isn't exactly the fastest amongst even with chlorophyll up, still gets outspent by a lot. Shiftry is a little bit faster at least. You do have Drifblim for that tailwind, which is really nice though with Tapu Fini, so it's not like this team is crying out for needing speed. You've got a Mon slower than 40, which is great. You've got Cockroach. Trick Room setup is in the turn, not the best, but at least it's a little bit more offensive. And that's because that's reflected in the unique the attack and special attack mods. There's only Cockroach that's above 120 in attack, and the rest of this team is below 120 in both attack and special attack. The defensive stats. There isn't actually any mon on this team other than Tapu Fini that breaks this 110 base mark, but Tapu Fini being one mon is not exactly unique to both defense and special defense, so you only get half point for that. You've got a mon that is 115 in defense and 113 in special defense, but none of the other mons on the team hit that type of level. I think the next closest is like 90 or something. Maybe there's a mon on the team with 100 in one of its stats and defensive stats, but just falls short a little bit there. They're good type combinations considering the fact that you've got 2 grass types and 2 fire types. He's still hitting 15 different types, which is the average, which is really nice. So yeah, like just a few maybe stronger picks, defensively or special or offensively could be nice for the team. It's hitting those stats, but just like failing to really, like especially could be special offense could do with a bit more. Just an extra defensive piece outside of Tapu Fini. Although like you've got Drifblim on the team, which is really good for disruption, especially on the physical side, even though it clashes a little bit with Ninetales. And you've got Raichu for like Eerie Impulse or Charm, which is still decent on the team. But taking into account what the team actually has without considering sets, you've got a team that's ranking 6th with a total of 18.5 points. And our last 18.5 point team, is here, and it is in fact the Old English Ice Cube. This team has a terrain mode with Tapu Koko, but it doesn't actually have a terrain mode. If I was to be awarding them as just like a setter and mode, this would probably only get half a point. But considering it is just being like, does it have terrain, does it not, it gets a full point. It does have Intimidate with Scrafty, which is really nice. You've got the Fake Out with Scrafty as well. Waterfall as well, if you want to include that. You've got Tailwind in Noctowl, not the best Tailwind setup, but it's got it. Trick Room in Slowking Galar, which is nice. 14 unique type combinations. Base speed of 120 and above. Easily hit by the Tapu Koko. A base speed of 14 below. Again, Slowking Galar, hitting those marks. On the damage output side of things, you've only got one mon above 120 in either stat, and that is Haxorus. So it is a little bit more questioning of like where the damage output is coming from the team. Like physically, well at least I think there's only one mod physically. I don't remember, but Haxorus definitely makes that count. On the special offense side of things, like the mons I think only hit like up to like 105 special attack, or 110 maybe even 115. I think Lucario is the strongest special attacker at 115. So could probably do with like reshoring up or just being aware of its special offensive limitations. The team is very defensive though. Like you've got numerous a couple of mons like defensively hit 110 or special defensively hit 110. Like Slowking Galar, I'm pretty sure hits 110 special defense, and then you've got a couple of mons like Scrafty that hits like a short hit around 105 or 110 in its defenses. So it might be even 115. So you've definitely got the defensive capabilities there. So yeah, overall the team hits pretty well, and you've got a lot of high stat totals. So overall you rank the top of the 18.5 teams. Moving on, we hit our rank number 4, which has actually got a total of 19.5. It would be higher, but I've given Fake Out a score of 1 for this team, and that is because it is the NK Mimikyu, and the only form of Fake Out is the VD female. And yes, it's an incredibly niche, it does get Fake Out, but it's so niche that it can only really run it if it's not running in terrain or against flying types, and that's very niche. So I've given it half a point, half the total points available for having Fake Out. It does have Tailwind, it does have Trick Room. Like, Trick Room's really clear on this team. Tailwind less so. It's got Altaria for its Tailwind. Altaria does clash a little bit with the Hail mode as well because of it. You'll be running either Cloud9 or Natural Cure. So you would be, it's kind of hard to run both of those now. So it does have Tailwind, although not the best setter. It's also weak to Ice, which I find funny. It's got 16 unique types, which is really good. It's only missing out on 2 types, and I believe that it is Rock and I'm not 100% sure what the other type it's missing out on is. Oh, a Psychic, I think. Rock and no, not Psychic. Rock and something. It's missing a Rock and another type, which is perfectly fine. Oh, it's Ghost. Rock and Ghost. Other types are being which are missing here. Which is fine. Like, that's still, like, 16 is a really good diversity of types. It's got redirection in Indeedee. I mean, Indeedee female offers so much of the value. Like, it gives it a Fake Out mod, it gives you a redirection mod, it gives you a terrain setter, and this team kind of used the terrain. Although it doesn't have like an Unburden mod for the terrain, like it's still doing well for Hatterene, like expanding forces, so that's still a terrain mode. Protect the Blaziken as well from being hit by priority attacks. Offensively, this team hits hard. It's got Mudsdale for 125 attack. It's got Hatterene for like 136 or something special attack. It's got Glycopod for the defensive side for like 140, although Glycopod's not the best. I think Mudsdale might hit 110 defense, so at least 110 defense. So you've got Mudsdale there, but on and Drapion even for 110. Because I know that is 110 defense. On the special side, it's a little bit frailer. Like, it's not got a strong special defense. It's not really hitting the 110 defense mark. But that's okay. I mean, you've got an Indeedee for setup and stuff, which is really nice. And the fact that you've got weather mode as well as a terrain mode, as you can see, some of these weather modes, terrain modes are really hitting high in the higher ranks. Because it gains you that extra point on this list. I'm not necessarily saying that that's exactly how to go about it, but it's just clear that it's just slightly more biased towards the way the points have been allocated, I suppose. But yeah. Overall, like if they had a different Fake Out mod on the team, this team would easily be in the top 2, I think, because a 19.5 would take it to 20.5, and that's just one slight change you need. So yeah, moving on, we are going to rank number 3, which is hitting the 20-point mark, and this team is the lower of 2 teams that are tied. Lowest base stat total, and it is the Miss Magical Marauders. This team has Tailwind, it has Trick Room, it's got 16 different types in the team. You've got Redirection with Rage Powder. It's missing a Prankster, but honestly I don't think it matters too much. You've got base speed definitely above 120, you've got Regieleki, and a base speed below 40, 100% guaranteed with Stack Attacker. So you've got the fastest and the slowest mon in the format, in my, I think Stack Attacker is. Slowest actually usable mod in the format. You've got a base speed, you've got a unique base attack, of 120 in both of your offenses. I mean, Hydrang's special attacker, your physical attack, not sure which one it is, but I know it hits it. Defenses, you've got stack attacking for defense, you've got, I think, Himachan is for special, I'm not sure, maybe Quagsire or something, but the team definitely hits the 110 special defense, so that's pretty nice. You got Fake Out, Inner Focus Fake Out with Hitmonchan, which is really good. You've got a Weather Setter with your Ninetales. I mean, the team is literally just missing maybe either a Prankstermon or a Terrain Setter or an Intimidate Mon for being like really top tier, like nearing a full pot, nearly all points gained. Rank number 2. As you can see here, like they've got a stepping in nearly every single mode, and it is the South Korean source. It's almost as if they've drafted to this exact plan. They've got Tailwind in R.EX. They've got Trick Room in Meowstic, although I wouldn't say Meowstic's the best Trick Room setter. At least they have it. They can imprison the Trick Room at the very least. It's got 14 different type combinations, just below the average. Redirection in Wingus, you've got a Prankstermon in Meowstic, Mon faster than 120 in R.EX, well, in Accelvor even. You've got a base speed Mon below 40 in just, well, Hippowdon in Wingus. You've got a super strong physical and special Mon. I mean, R.EX hits 140 attack, I think. Magneton just hits that 120 special attack, which is the strongest special attacker. Defensively, you've got a Hippowdon for the defense. I think Toxapex maybe for the special defense. It definitely hits the 110s though. I know Toxapex definitely has high special defense. You've got a Fake Out in Meowstic, and that's about it. I mean, the Meowstic is very much being the thing that provides all these different modes at the moment. Terrain Setter, no, there isn't a Terrain Setter. But you've got a Weather Setter in Hippowdon. Does it have Intimidate? No, it just misses out on Intimidate. It's a shame really, because like if you had Intimidate or Terrain Setter, like this team would just be so many points. But that leaves one team for last, and this team somehow manages to get a unique type combination of 8.5, which means that it's got all but one type on its team. It's got Tailwind, it's got Trick Room, it's got Prankster, it's got Fake Out, Terrain, Weather, Intimidate. The only thing it's missing from being a perfect score is Redirection, one more Pokemon type, and one more Mon with a base special defense above 110. And this team is the Georgia Gurchins. You've got pretty much every type combination. You've got Prankster and Riolu, you've got Intimidate with Quillfish, you've got a slow Mon with Turtonator, you've got a fast Mon with, I believe, Rubombi speed, just hitting over 120. You've got physically offensive Tyranitar and Excadrill, you've got specially offensive, I think, in Articuno. You've got a defensive Mon easily. In Turt, I think the special defense, I think Tyranitar is the strongest special defense Mon at 100, and it could probably do with the team just having a slightly more specially defensive Mon. Even though you do have like Carmine Articuno setup. It does get Fake Out though with Raichu as well, which is really nice, and you've got that terrain mode, Pincurchin Raichu, you've got that sand mode with Tyranitar and Excadrill. So, and Intimidate is brought on the Quillfish, as I said earlier. So like this team nearly hits every type of required feature. It gets the high score of 22. However, this doesn't, just because it's got a high score here, doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't have its weaknesses. I mean, the team does have a obvious ground slash dark slash ghost weakness to the team. So it's not to say that this team is without its flaws. It's just according to the criteria set from the start, it has the highest total points. So congratulations to the Georgia Gurchins for making that. So yeah, that's the end of the ranking. There is one little segment I would like to do called Stat Reflection, and it just shows which teams had the highest and lowest total stat, or average, means the same thing. compared to all the other teams. We start off with HP, and the team with the highest health is Rebellion, and I think that's really helped out by that Guzzlord being a part of the team. Like, Guzzlord has an incredibly high HP, but he's also got, I believe, 3 legendary dogs which have got decent HP stats all around as well, so you can kind of see why Rebellion ends up with the highest HP. The lowest HP stat, though, goes to the Cambridge Camera-Ups, and it's kind of surprising, but that might be because he's got slightly more defensively high mons. Like, you've got a Arachnid which has got high special defense, but not the highest amount of HP, and a few mons here and there about with similar stats like that. You've also got the strongest physical attacking team. Well, that goes to the MK Minikus. Even though they've got the expanding force in DD plus Hatterene and strong special attack, they've actually got the highest average attack stats of all the teams, and I think that hits 99. And you saw earlier on, like, some of those more physically offensive picks, the Blazerkin, a few of the other ones that honestly have escaped my mind at this point. So, like, the team, even though it's got special offense, it's got some really strong physical pieces as well. You've got the lowest attacking team, though. Again, it's the Cambridge Camera-Ups. So this, you can kind of understand why. Arachnid doesn't have the strongest of the stats, but it's got Water Bubble to boost its damage output. You've got Moltres Galar on the team. So mons that aren't exactly overly physically strong line this team up. But that's not to say like the team's bad again. It's just something to note, like it's physically a little bit offensively weaker than some of the other teams in the league. Moving on to the highest defensive team, well, it's the Tendo Melmetals at rank 24. But you can kind of see why. You've got ones like Hippowdon and Celesteela on the team, like really strong defensive pieces, but without so much damage output. Like you've got like Regigigas as well, which is quite defensive. You've got Weezing, which is defensive, which is like 120 defense. So you can really see where this damage is coming from, where this defensive capabilities are coming from. The team with the lowest defense, though, it's the Roll Gold Pretzels. Like the average of 60 something in its defenses, really low defensive capabilities. But this is reflecting the fact that this team is known for being quite a. This team has been drafted as being quite a hyper offensive based team, so it's there to do that type of damage. But whether it can take that damage back in itself is another thing. Our highest special attacking team, well, it's Rebellion. They've got a decently high special output. Raikou Suicune, really good. Duraludon, really good, 120 special attack. We've got Guzzlord, which helps with that special offense. I wouldn't say it's the most special offensive, but like clearly the team's average is pretty damn good and helps become the strongest special attacking team. Okay, so yeah, and then our lowest special attacking team is the Tendo Melmetals, which is, it makes sense really, with it being with full of mons that like Hippowdon and quite defensive team. You've got Regigigas, you've got Weezing. Weezing's probably the strongest special attacker on the team outside Celesteela, from what I can remember. Celesteela's its strongest special attacker, which is only 107, I think. So you can see the team is very defensively strong, has decent damage physical output, but on the special side of things, not mirrored very well. So then our strongest special defensive team is actually a tie between the Old English Ice-Cube and the Drowsy Dracozolt, both averaging at like 91 for this average special defense, which is really good. There's a tie there. Both teams are very similar, I'd say, in the fact that they both like to like pivot and switch in, and they want to absorb hits with mons. They're more defensive mons, whilst damaging out with their more offensive mons. I would say the Ice-Cubes are a little bit more about the repositioning their more offensive pieces than what the Dragozolts are. Like Dragozolts like to chip down a little bit more whilst absorbing hits, whilst the Ice-Cubes like to chip, yes, but reposition their more physical, their more offensive threats around the defensive pieces. So they're both their drafts mirroring this to have a similarly bulky special defensive teams, which is kind of funny. But the lowest special defensive team, is it a surprise that it's the Roll Gold Pretzels again? As I was saying before, perfect example of a hyper offensive team. What's the best form of defense? offense. This team has definitely opted for hitting you hard and fast before you're giving a chance to even hit them. Giving up their armor for huge damage and speed. Although that being said, they're not even the fastest team. The fastest team is in fact the Rabombies, which is kind of funny considering they haven't even got a mon above 120 and their fastest mon is Horlucha. But on average, because it's a flying type team, mono flying, they actually have the fastest team in the draft, with the slowest team being almost myself, being awarded to the Porygons. And again, we saw this before with the fastest mon being Urshifu, and they having quite a strong, solid, slow Trick Room team, Trick Room mode. This team is a lot slower than all the others, and they do have Tailwind at the very least, although it is Bravery, which isn't the best Tailwind setter. But the team's Trick Room mode is really solid, and you can see them playing towards that a little bit more. Maybe they want to absorb the hits more and deal damage, who knows. It'll be interesting to see how their season goes, if they lean into a bit more Trick Room or if they try and make some shifts and stuff. We can only wait and see. But the team with the highest stat total is this thing like a Rabombi. Their team consistently has the highest stat total team. Has mons with a higher stat total. I mean, to be fair, they do have 3 of the genies, which is really high. They have a pseudo legendary in Salvas, and all their other picks aren't exactly weak. I mean, you've got Articuno, another legendary. So you've already got like so many mons with like 570 base stats, and 2 mons with 600 base stats. So having a team like that, which doesn't even have an EVLite user on the team, it makes sense that has the highest base stat total of any team in the draft league. But the team with the lowest base stat total, well, that goes to the Cambridge Camelobs, and that's not surprising considering they have such a low HP stat, total HP stat, such a low attack stat. So yeah, that's basically the list of the teams and the reflection, and this concludes the most objectively objective draft review since Goomer22's 4 months ago. I hope you guys have stuck with me. This is just a load of stats. I apologise that I'm not going to be as finessed as Goomer or presenting these type of stats videos. But I hope you will enjoy the information that has been provided, and again, I'll just remind you all that regardless of where you're placed on this list, it means nothing. This isn't even opinion based, this is just all based on a few factors that your teams may or may not have. That doesn't always necessarily mean that they're the strongest team around, it just is a good indicator for what the teams can do. And I thank you all for taking the time to just watch and listen to me ramble on about some of these teams. Hopefully I'll be doing a version of this for the VDL Series Shop division. It just takes a little bit of time to create these type of presentations and record all the stats needed. So it might take a couple of days for it to come out, but I do want to get it out for you all, as I feel like the VDLS division deserves a little bit more attention. So, once again, I thank you all for listening, and I'll catch you again next time, guys. See you then.